Last week, we learned that Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is getting a remake. It's still in the early planning stages, so we shouldn't expect it for a few years, but if you're like me and you love Black Flag to this day, then this is very exciting news. So I wanted to dive in and let you guys know what I think about it, and also what I think you should expect from this Black Flag remake. First of all, I saw this reaction to the news immediately, which is, why are you remaking Black Flag instead of Assassin's Creed 1? Now, if you're out of the loop, a lot of the Assassin's Creed community has either been speculating or just wishing and hoping for an Assassin's Creed 1 remake. And guys, I don't think it's happening. Maybe it'll happen with Assassin's Creed Infinity, which we'll talk about later, but when you're talking about remaking a video game, you're not going to go back and choose one that might be like iconic and super cool and very sci-fi and dark. I mean, I love Assassin's Creed 1. You're going to choose the widely popular video game to remake. That's Black Flag. I mean, this appealed to people who didn't even like Assassin's Creed in the first place. This is the pirate game. You know what I mean? Before Sea of Thieves, this was the one. So if we're Ubisoft and we want to remake a really popular old game that we think will sell really well and appeal to a wide audience, clearly Black Flag is the answer to that question. It's not Assassin's Creed 1. I mean, Black Flag is the reason that Skull and Bones exists. It originated as a Black Flag, DLC or spinoff or something, and that just proves how popular it was. So anyways, this just makes perfect sense. And also, I'm sure if you're listening to this and you were on the fringes of Assassin's Creed and you're like, yeah, I love Black Flag, I'd love to see a remake, but you weren't really entrenched in the community, this makes perfect sense. So I just think all around Black Flag getting a remake, yeah, I think everyone's giving this a massive thumbs up. It makes sense. But of course, now I'm wondering, what would a modern remake of Black Flag look like? And I think we've got a lot of fantastic examples of what remakes should be like. Based on this last year, I mean, the last 6 months, good remakes are popular and they sell a lot if they're done well. Resident Evil 4 just got a fantastic remake and it blew me away. I loved it. Same with Dead Space. I love the original, but the remake that EA put out this year was really good too. I mean, Final Fantasy VII just got a really fantastic remake a couple years ago. We've learned from these games that good remakes, they take the source material and they improve upon it in ways that are true to the original, but with those modern sensibilities. They get rid of the bad stuff that didn't work because they have years of feedback showing them, yes, this stuff did not work. And they keep the good stuff. And that second part is really key. You can't just get rid of what made the original game good. And like I said in my Black Flag in 2021 review that I put up obviously 2 years ago, Black Flag was, I think, the perfect example of an Assassin's Creed game that did both. It still delivered on an Assassin's fantasy, but also delivered on the pirate fantasy. It struck the perfect balance between the two. So I just think Ubisoft needs to be really careful and considerate when, looking at what to change. I mean, games have changed a lot in the last decade since the original came out. So this is probably going to have a lot of changes. I just hope that they make the right changes. Now, what are the right changes? Well, if you were to ask me, if you were to say, jayvee, go back and do reconstructive surgery on Black Flag and make it release in 2026, let's say. Let's just put it way out into the future. Things I think it absolutely needs. You need either Matt Ryan to come back and play Edward again, or just use the same lines somehow. I don't know. You need him, or you need to find someone who lives up to the original, because Edward is such a fantastic character, and the performance is a main reason why. The writing and the performance in Black Flag are fantastic, so you need to find your star for this game. Otherwise, I think it falls flat, honestly. Next up, you cannot touch this story, and I think that's really important. There are parts of Black Flag that I think maybe overstay their welcome. There's some meandering that Edward does for several years, but it's so important to his story. It makes the payoff at the end really satisfying. So I just don't think you can rip the guts out of this story. You can't rewrite it. It needs to be the same story. I think a great example of the way to do this is with Dead Space. Dead Space was the same story, but it actually added certain sections, even entire levels that made sense, that flowed well. Now, I can't see into the future and tell you exactly what needs to be rewritten or added or whatever to Black Flag, but I think that's a great way to approach it if you do it well. One big thing that did not work for a lot of people is the modern day in Black Flag. And you know what? I have sort of a mixed bag feeling on that. In my review, I said, I think it's fantastic that this is here. I kind of like the idea. It's inventive. It's interesting. It started the Juno arc, which was really cool. And the only thing that didn't work about it is that they didn't wrap it up well. So I think what they need to do is figure out a better way to approach modern day, but don't rip it out entirely. It needs that connective thread to the older games where we know we're in the Animus. We are doing this stuff. We exist in this world because it's a simulation of the past. Like, that's such an important part of Assassin's Creed that's been lost in recent years. For the love of God, don't get rid of that, but also go back and do some, serious rethinking with how you're presenting the modern day. Because I don't think walking around with a tablet around Abstergo Industries is going to be well received in this day and age. I just think, that definitely needs some work. And also, I don't want to get too far out there, but you could actually give us a nice, bow tying resolution for Juno in this game. Yeah, that might be asking for a lot because they technically resolved it in an arc, in a comic, whatever. You could go back and actually address this. I know that Juno exists and that sort of thing goes on in the games in some form or fashion, but you could give us a better ending in Black Flag itself. So that's something that, I'd like to see. On to the actual gameplay itself. First off, this is probably a pie in the sky request, but please, Ubisoft, don't turn this into an RPG. Do not apply the modern formula to this game. And I know a lot of you are probably hearing that and being like, why not? This game, you could go back and play Black Flag from 2013 today. It still feels like an Ezio era game, but it also has this new flavor with the ship exploration and just being completely open and allowing you to explore this vast world that feels interesting and unique. I still don't believe we need the RPG style combat in the new games. I don't. I think that counterkill feels awesome. It's a power fantasy. That's why the Ezio games were so fun. Part of the fantasy of being Edward was just absolutely rolling over people and using, the pistol swords and just stupid, insane stuff in a very B-movie action kind of way. I think if you remove that, you remove a core feeling of what made the original game fun. I just don't think it needs it. And it also doesn't need loot drops. I don't need shiny loot. I don't need to dive into a menu every 5 seconds to, put on the best version of a sword that has 26 damage instead of 25 damage. That's just not fun. That would also mess with the core loop of what made Black Flag fun in the first place. And then the other core part of gameplay was not actually parkour, although I think it needs to have solid parkour. We'll see how Mirage turns out in that respect. But the other core part of Black Flag was that ship gameplay, just roaming around the seas, getting into dogfights with other ships, either boarding them or just sinking them. Believe it or not, when I played Skull and Bones in 2018, I'm showing you my footage that I captured at E3 in 2018. Skull and Bones had some cool mechanics 5 years ago, and even some ideas that improved upon Black Flag. Now, the problem is, I think all of that's been ripped out and remade entirely, and what we saw from Skull and Bones, I think a year or two ago, did not look good. I mean, it looked rough. So, my wish list is for them to revisit the cool mechanics that they came up with from this Skull and Bones game that used to exist and put those in Black Flag, because I think there was some really cool ideas in there. If you think about it, some of that stuff made it into Odyssey, and I think it was really fun to do ship combat in Odyssey, but ship combat in Odyssey feels more arcadey. Black Flag hits this sweet spot of, I don't know, not realistic, but you know what I mean, grounded and not magical, but still feeling, generally realistic and piratey. That's what I want. I think just go back to the original Black Flag, go back to some of those original Skull and Bones ideas, incorporate those, and that would be a perfect blend for a remake of this game. The next thing that this remake makes me think about is Infinity, where you can play multiple time periods and multiple protagonists all in one place. There's going to be a singular app, a singular hub, that we'll download and access all of this stuff from. Now, when Infinity was first reported on and then confirmed by Ubisoft, they said it was like 3 to 4 years away. And at this moment in time, that's still 1 to 2 years from right now. When they did their like spotlight show, I think it was last year, they said that Infinity would be like Codename Red, Codename Jade, which is that mobile game that's like the most recent or soonest thing we're gonna see, Hexy, and then the Netflix series. So Infinity, whatever it is, it's actually gonna come out fairly soon, like in the near future. So what I'm trying to say is, once this thing comes out, I think that'll give us a better idea about what this remake is going to be, like how it's going to be delivered and what we're going to expect. It's been speculated that remakes, if and when they happen, of Assassin's Creed are going to come through the Infinity platform. So yeah, I'm kind of eager to see what this platform is like. But at the end of the day, it's always in the back of my mind. We can get excited about what the future of Assassin's Creed is going to be. That's like half of the fun of participating in this community and playing these games. But can Ubisoft pull it off? In the modern era of this company, can they do it with all of the controversy and all of the missteps that they frequently take? After Valhalla, that game forced me to develop some healthy skepticism. And I think the cynical take on this Black Flag remake is that they're going to slap a modern coat of paint on it, make it just like the newer RPG games, and then stuff it with microtransactions and just, you know, make it a cash cow, baby. Just really milk that thing. But I do want to remind you guys, Black Flag already had microtransactions. I think it was one of the first games to incorporate time skips where you can pay real money and it'll just reveal everything on the map. All the valuables, all the treasures, everything. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely hate microtransactions. I hate the pop-ups that Ubisoft is developing, especially in Black Flag. Like, that stuff sucks, and I really don't want it. But if this Black Flag remake sucks, if it's not any good, it's not gonna be because it's stuffed with microtransactions, I don't think. I think the rest of the game could still be good. And microtransactions with Ubisoft is just like a given at this point. It's just expected for me. But still, I think Ubisoft have earned themselves skepticism. I think it's fair, more than fair, to be skeptical about a Black Flag remake and if it's actually gonna be good. However, we have Mirage coming out soon, which is, by all accounts, even like from what they've shown us, it does look like a faithful spiritual successor to Assassin's Creed 1. It's not out yet. I don't have my hands on it, so I can't confirm that like myself, but it looks good so far. If it does come out and it turns out well and it's like, oh, they actually can thread the needle between, you know, old school classic feeling game with modern sensibilities, then that will be proof positive for me. That'll be a good test case, a litmus test for Black Flag getting a solid remake. Until that point, though, you can count me a member of the cautious optimism club on Black Flag's remake. I'm excited, but I want to see it. Well, that is about it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this rambly, old school feeling Assassin's Creed, speculation video. And if you did, remember to hit that like button. Also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and hit the bell so you don't miss my next one. The next time we hear more about Assassin's Creed, you can expect me to talk about it here on the channel. So you don't want to miss that. Thank you guys once again for watching, and I will talk to you next time.